All hail King Harold Hardrada. Welcome back to the Screen Squad. I'm Kev. As you could probably guess, going over the final season of Vikings Valhalla. Now, I have been an avid follower and fan of the whole Vikings saga. You got the original Viking show, this. I know it's not connected, but The Last Kingdom takes place during this time period as well. All shows of which depict the history of the Vikings and their religion in totally different lights. However, all have one thing in common: religious conflict, which is what these shows are through and through about. Now, I know there's going to be some Christian faithful out there that hate the idea of these shows completely because they go against everything they believe in. But as someone who is a believer in this stuff, I'm going to review it. If you don't like it, no, I'm sorry. But after more than a decade, the world of Vikings it's come to an end. For 11 years, Michael Hurst and now Jeb Stewart have traced the history of the Vikings and the raids on England and the rest of Europe, becoming explorers, conquerors, kings and warriors across not only that continent, but Asia, Africa, and even North America. The most recent chapter in the combination of history and myth, Vikings Valhalla, set out to show us the Vikings' decline, portraying their conversion to Christianity and how that forever changed Scandinavia. But in its third and final season, the series sprints to the finish line, and I use that term. It's pretty direct, but rather loosely when I say sprints to the finish line. Everything was rushed. 8 episodes, hour-long episodes, so 8 hours to tell storylines that could have been fleshed out in another maybe 2 seasons. Or one season of a full 13, 14 episodes. Extend this season a little bit more. Conclude some storylines that were kind of left on the afterburner. It feels like it ends in a way that makes you feel like there's going to be more. Even if it's just a couple episodes more. It just feels like there needed to be a little bit more. And they condensed almost every storyline, rushed to a conclusion that felt forced, leaving many characters underserved, their stories open-ended and lacking in resolution. Still, I will say there are glimpses of greatness in this season that echo the best of the original Vikings. For starters, this season jumps forward in time 7 years, though there's little physical changes to any of the main characters, such as Leif Erikson, Freydis Erikstadr, and Harold Sigurdsson. The most notable change of those three is Leif Erikson's growing sleeve tattoos, and not even just of pagan religion, every religion. He uses his tattoos as kind of like a guide or like a book of knowledge to help him out in different parts of the world to show other cultures what he's looking for. And then when they see certain symbols, like on his arm there's a symbol, he showed it to a Muslim man and he knew immediately what he was looking for. So now at least the original Vikings had the decency to change hairstyles or add some makeup every once in a while the original show gradually expanded its split Game of Thrones-esque style storytelling as the saga became too big and the characters too spread out for a singular point of view. And it's clear from the first episode of Season 3 that Valhalla has too much going on and not nearly enough time to dedicate to everything. In addition to our main trio, these 8 episodes fritter away precious minutes on King Canute managing his North Sea Empire, Magnus Olafsson in his quest to avenge his father's death at the hands of Freydis, Earl Godwin and his endless political schemes, and the ambitions of Harold Harefoot, another son of King Canute. And only Canute's and Harold's stories receive proper arcs and resolutions, even if the latter grows meandering and predictable thanks to Harold's constant delayed return trip from Constantinople, and his rivalry with this big, roided out general or commander, whatever he was. But by far the best aspect of this final season is its take on the history of religious conflict, guys. It's a theme that has always been at the core of the franchise, and Season 3 is all about hateful, violent, and stupid stupid, such clashes of faith. It's brutal. And we see all this most clearly through Canute and his efforts to legitimize his empire in the eyes of the Pope and the Catholic Church. At first, he's mocked as a brute who built his empire on blood, which is ironic given how every other European kingdom was made, or how half the season focuses on the atrocities the Christian Byzantine Empire commits in its war against the Muslim-ruled Syracuse. Indeed, if there is an upside to Valhalla's lack of resolution, it is its illustration of how destructively endless these conflicts and ideas are. Even if the war between Christian and pagan Vikings is over, the persecution of those considered other won't end in the loss of people, knowledge, and culture. Also satisfying to watch are the battle scenes in Season 3, particularly the centerpiece depiction of the Siege of Syracuse. It's epic in scope with many moving parts, dozens of actors, and some impressive stunts. Plus, it's followed by many a single combat scene with dynamic camera movements and kinetic choreography. Still, it's hard to overlook the simple fact that characters like Freydis and Leif, as well as other supporting players, are left hanging before their story comes to a conclusion. Like, you have this really great story about Freydis having to leave Jormsburg due to the threat of Magnus Olafsson, but she continues to get the upper hand on him throughout multiple points in the show. But Leif, for one, is much more interesting than a lot of the other characters, including Canute or Harold Harefoot. And Sam Corlett does a compelling job playing the famous explorer as a world traveler and keeper of knowledge. His inner conflict over the use of his inventions for the sake of warfare is complicated since, he's a Viking, whose career literally began by helping destroy the London Bridge and killing countless people. Valhalla promised to show us the end of the Viking era. Unfortunately, Season 3 does not fulfill that promise, and despite Valhalla being planned to last just 3 seasons, the stories of its main characters were left unfinished. After what seemed like episode after episode of Harold not returning from Constantinople to claim his throne as the King of Norway, he returns. Magnus also kills King Sven. Knut dies due to illness. Magnus tries taking the throne. Harold returns. They co-king it for like 30 minutes until Magnus says the only way he'll accept being co-king is if they burn the witch. That witch being the last believer in the old faith, Freydis. And there's some cool trickery when she's on the post about to burn. She has this cool speech about trying to bring the gods back to Kattegat, how Magnus has done a great wrong and the gods are mad, and then everything starts going up in flames, and everyone around thinks it's the old gods returning to Kattegat, when in reality it's Leif Erikson with flaming arrows lighting shit up. But it's enough to trick Magnus, and it's enough to get the rest of the, I guess, council, you could call them, of people that elected the kings, to back Harold over Magnus to the point where, so the last thing Magnus sees is Freydis about to burn, the fire reaches her post, and while the smoke's covering the whole thing, Leif runs up, cuts her off of it, and they run away. And then when the smoke clears, she's just poof, gone. And Magnus immediately, he sees through the lie and knows that Harold had something to do with it, which he did. But ultimately, Freydis and Leif get away. Leif takes one of King Canute's ships and plans on sailing to look for the Golden Land, which is North America. And he takes his sister Freydis, who, in other words, her story is left unfinished also because she left Greenland, which, guys, we finally got to see Eric the Red. I have been waiting 3 seasons to see Eric the Red, and he's kind of a letdown. He's kind of just a moody old baby who doesn't want his daughter to leave, so he sabotages everything, kills her captain, and kidnaps her son. To which this man, Stig, is off looking for Harold Jr. She goes back to Norway and reunites with her brother and the father of her child, King Harold. And this show ends with Harold taking on a new mantra, if you will. He's not Harold Sigurdsson anymore. He goes by Harold Hardrada. And it ends with him getting this really cool crown with a helmet that's historically accurate. If you Google pictures of Harold Hardrada, it's what he wore. And it ends with the rest of his men chanting Hardrada while beating their chests. And he allows his sister and Leif to leave and search for the Golden Land. But that right there is, they were last seen sailing to the Golden Land in the boat provided for Leif by Canute, while Stig was found by Harold Jr., but it's unknown if Freydis returns for his son or not. And obviously, like I said, Harold took over as a king, but his reign won't be explored without more seasons. Emma's future was left uncertain, as she was implied to be seducing Harefoot, while Godwin realized the big mistake he had made putting Harefoot on the throat with Emma, now that Canute's dead. All the loose ends and unanswered questions left by Vikings Valhalla Season 3 will have to be solved by historical records, though there are some, like Harold Jr.'s fate, that will be left to the audience's imagination, as he's simply a fictional character. Vikings Valhalla also didn't get to cover the end of the Viking Age, leaving that also to historical records. The show reaches the end of its saga with a rushed final season that leaves several characters with inconclusive storylines. And how could it not, considering all the time it's spent beyond its core trio of Leif, Freydis, and Harold? Though it delivers enough action and political intrigue to be entertaining throughout, this is a bit of a disappointing ending to the story that started over a decade ago with the original Vikings. Like, that show was so fleshed out and beautifully done, beginning to end, beginning with Ragnar as a simple farmer, to halfway through the show with his death, to the end of the show with his sons being esteemed warriors and military leaders throughout history. Like, if you don't know the story of the Sons of Ragnar, I highly suggest you watch all of Vikings all the way through. It's not the most historically accurate show, as it depicts Ragnar and Rollo as brothers, which, if you know anything about this stuff, they're not brothers, and they were separated by about 100 years, actually. It's sad to see this whole universe come to an end on such a, I don't want to say underwhelming, because the episodes were good episodes, but when you go the Game of Thrones style, with each episode having like 20 minutes depicting one story, you need to flesh that out more. You need more episodes to fully show what you're trying to tell, finish the story. Sorry, just quoted Cody Rhodes, is what it is. But yeah, with that being said, overall, I liked the final season for what it was. But yeah, I do wish there was a lot more footage shown. I also really wish, because in the original show, it shows a lot of these characters reaching the Golden Land. How are you not going to show that? Like, I think a cool scene would have been, I don't know if anybody watched Vikings, but in the original show, when Uba and his people all arrive to North America, they see this post, right? And the post is carved with like characters and hieroglyphs and whatnot. But the moment Uba sees it, he recognizes the bottom of it as his father, King Ragnar, and understands that this is our story. And then he sees Floki on the little swing thing. And I feel like it would have been cool to see Leif and Freydis show up to North America and see that and be like, oh my God, we've been here before. Our people have been here. I don't know, guys. For a believer in the old faith and someone who just loves Vikings through and through, it was an underwhelming final season, to say the least. As fun as it was to watch, underwhelming as far as conclusive. With that being said, let me know what you think in the comments below if you've watched it. Thanks for all the support, and until next time, this is Kev saying Screen Squad out. Damn.